Okay, so hi you guys. I'm here with Sara Snow. We're kind of leaning into the camera. It's better than my car though, right? So I'm here with Sara Snow, who is an organic advocate, really. I mean, I was trying to figure out how to sum up what you do, and she's been a host on Discovery. She's been a newscaster, like in sort of regular news too. Mm-hmm. She's done pretty much everything in terms of media. Books and videos and everything, and sarasnow.com is your site, right? Yeah. But so I was trying to sum it up, like, who is this person? And I think really advocate is like the best word to sum up what you do, because you're constantly advocating for organic and healthier options for people. Yeah. Would you say that? Would you? Yeah. How do you define yourself, Sarah?
Yeah. I like that. I like being an advocate. I think also the word sort of assumes that you're taking someone by the hand and saying, I will work on behalf of you. I will help you figure out how to do this, which is really one of the things.
For you.
To a certain extent.
And she's not running for office yet.
But, and how can I help someone? How can I make this easy for someone? How can I make it so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming, so oppressive, and so that you don't recognize yourself when you look in the mirror? Because if you make so many changes that all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I don't recognize my life as it used to be, you're not going to stick with it.
I totally agree.
You just won't.
It's like dieting, It
is.
Like people who are like, I am not going to eat, anything red for the month of December. All you see is red food, right? And you're never going to do it. But if you just say, okay, I'm just going to sort of shift, maybe I'll eliminate 2 red things.
Right.
Maybe I'll have
pink food. What I like to tell people is make 1 or 2 changes. And habits form. We form habits. We form bad habits all the time, so why not form good habits instead? So once those become habit, after a month or a couple weeks or a couple months of doing that, once they become habit, then you don't realize you're doing them anymore, then add in a couple more things. So let those become habit and then make a couple more changes.
I think we need a Sara Snow timetable.
I like that.
Here's your first 2 habits. This is a very creaky table.
This table actually was my grandparents.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's made from like 200-year-old reclaimed barn wood.
I love it.
So it's from an old barn, and then I burned a hole in it my first year hosting Thanksgiving.
It's actually a beautiful hole. I think it's great.
I keep a nice Santa Barbara farmer's market gourd right over the little black spot on the table.
Now it has history. So, okay, tell me about your family. So I know that your family founded Eden Foods, which, if you guys don't know about Eden, but Eden was one of the first, truly consistent organic brands, 40 years ago now, I think?
So in the mid-'60s to late 60s, my dad started a natural foods co-op. More so than anything else, like Santa Monica Co-op or anything like that. It was like a food co-op where people could come and they could get all the natural foods, legumes, grains, pressed oils, those sorts of things. So
local farmers and local
farmers
purveyors.
With sort of a regional sense to it.
And where was this?
In Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay.
And it started as a little deli and a co-op. And then it just kind of grew. It became a distributor of these foods. And so they were driving the truck into, a broader region and a broader region. And then pretty soon they had, a coast-to-coast distribution model. And when I was growing up in the mid to late 70s, I remember it as the Eden Foods Distribution Center, and then also the deli. There was this Eden Foods deli, and you could go and you could, big barrels of raisins, and the little sort of grocery store.
The old school health store. Yes. Like, I remember the smell of it vividly.
I was just going to say the smell. There's certain stores you walk into,
so good.
And they smell like my childhood.
Yeah, oh, totally, absolutely. That and Good Earth tea. I don't know if you did Good Earth tea.
Yes. Offline, I'll tell you a recipe that has to do with alcohol and Good Earth tea that I discovered the other night.
I'm going to share that.
My version of a hot toddy.
Okay, good. So then cut to today where Eden is, for example, when I'm talking about BPA-free, Eden is one of the few canned food manufacturers that has been consistently BPA-free from the beginning and really kind of shows other manufacturers that you actually can do this and be successful as a company. Yeah. So what was that like? So you're in, you're growing up going to health food stores and sort of living the life that I think many of us really want to create these healthy homes for our children, and have to kind of work at it now in a way that seems like you just grew up in this type of healthy home that we are all. It's like the ideal came to you. How was that? Like, do you feel like you have to achieve that now? Or is that something that comes naturally to you with your kids?
I do definitely feel like I owe it to my upbringing.
Yeah.
And of course I want to. I know what a difference it makes. And now as I'm raising my own children, I want to make those changes, make sure I have the healthiest home possible, make sure I have the healthiest foods possible, all those sorts of things. But even before I had kids, it was the way my husband and I lived, just the way I've always lived. So it's habit for me. It's written in who I am. But I think that because I grew up that way, I'm also very, in some ways, loose about it, and in some ways very forgiving of myself and of other people as they're trying to do these things. Because I grew up this way way before it was cool and way before it was easy, right? And so we made all the changes that we could make. But then there were also some things that you just couldn't do. It would have thrown life too far off kilter to try to go in one particular direction. Not one is coming to mind necessarily. But because of that, I know that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like you have to be 100% there or don't bother. It's you're 90% there, or in some phases of life, you're 40% there.
Totally.
I mean, life is crazy. Life happens. You have 3 kids in 4 years, or someone gets terribly sick, or, whatever. Life happens. And I think more than anything, we need to be embracing that, and we need to be forgiving ourselves. We need to grant ourselves a little bit of grace.
Well, that's that's Mommy Greenest in a nutshell. That's the whole tagline: healthier parenting, less judgment. That's why I wanted to start talking about this stuff in the first place, because I feel like there's been so much I'm better than you. You know what I mean? And it's not just within the sort of organic and sustainable lifestyle movement. It's also within parenting in general. I mean, how much of this have you read about, or there's studies, or even you sort of see it in your own community where, one mom is saying, oh, yeah, she's,
well, there's the whole stay-at-home mom versus working mom battle that will probably never, ever go away.
Right. So to try to step back from that and just, I love that forgiveness, acceptance, less judgment, less judgment in general, I think is really good for our society now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so did your husband grow up like that too, or did you have to totally school him? And
yeah, he didn't grow up that way. I mean, he
did it
grew
for
up
love.
in, I suppose, a healthy family, but not one where he was going to be fed, brown rice and tofu, and we were eating quinoa way before people had figured out how to pronounce quinoa.
Right. Quinoa?
Exactly. But
no judgment though if you're saying quinoa.
They'll get what you mean. Go to the health food store, tell them you want quinoa, and they'll help you. So he did it out of love. Yeah.
Good.
But he somehow never missed those other foods,
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny. I mean, my husband and I both kind of evolved that way, but then I have my dad when he comes to stay. He grew up in Nebraska, and he's now more accepting. But when he used to live with us, and we would have tofu 3 nights a week in different forms, it's like, okay,
you can do things with this.
Yeah, you may call this ground beef, but it's just more tofu. All right, so you have your beautiful little daughter, Isla, who is
5 months, almost 6 months.
She's so cute. You guys, look at the Mommy Greenest holiday photos, because she is in there. Oh, hey, FedEx.
Just, the daily deliveries.
So how is it being a mom of 2? I mean...
Whoa. Being a mom of 2 is harder than being a mom of 1.
They say 1 is 1 and 2 is 10. Have you ever heard that expression?
But I think also it depends on the person, because I've heard from so many people who think 0 to 1 is no transition and 1 to 2 is a much harder transition. For me, 0 to 1 was a huge transition.
Yeah.
I went from traveling all the time, being back and forth between New York and LA, shooting my shows, doing media, doing book events and all this stuff, to all of a sudden I had a baby and I wasn't willing to travel and do all the stuff that I had been doing.
Yeah.
So it was a huge transition for me in that sense. And just, you define yourself an entirely different way. So having 2 kids, I didn't have to go through that hurdle a second time.
Yeah.
Because I already defined myself as a mom, and I
Right.
figured out how to relate to moms and all that stuff. I joined the club.
Yes.
But 2 kids, in the morning and at bedtime especially is.
And your husband is traveling a lot too.
He's traveled a lot recently, but generally he's around, and so we divide and conquer.
That's good. Dividing and conquering is excellent. And then you have 3 kids like me, and you know,
Well,
there's not enough hands.
you can't do zone defense anymore.
Right,
It's that you're outnumbered. And then I
all
hear, as
over.
long as you have 3, you may as well have 4. And I'm one of 4, and I do think 4 is the perfect number.
Yeah.
And so as long as you have 3, it's time to
All
have a
right,
4.
so let's talk when you have 3.
Oh no, I'm done at 2. We won't be talking.
So, you have shared this with me before, and I obviously asked if it was okay if we talk about it here, but so my cousin is having a really hard time getting pregnant, and I know you had shared that that's something that you were challenged with as well. I think the interesting in a way, and also heartbreaking part of it is that she she doesn't use Teflon pans, and she,
Right.
she eats organic, and she's eliminated all the things that the studies don't say unequivocally cause
Right.
infertility, but they
She embodies
say
health.
they could be. So she's done everything that she can, and has lived this way for so long in anticipation of getting pregnant that she thought, okay, it's going to be a slam dunk, And so what do you do when you have lived your life a certain way that people say is the healthiest way possible, and then you're faced with infertility? Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was hard for me because same thing, I thought I'm super healthy, so when it's time to do this, it'll just happen. And then it didn't happen, and it took us 6 years to get pregnant with Sylvia.
Yeah.
Our older. And it was off and on, and I was traveling a lot, which was a big part of it.
Yeah.
Because it takes 2 to tango.
Absolutely.
You have to be in the same room.
Yes.
Bed or no bed, but
This
in the same room.
Does not work through Skype.
At that magic teeny tiny little window.
Yeah.
It's the miracle of life. It's a
It is.
miracle that any of us ever get pregnant and carry these babies and grow them, and then they're born and they're living, breathing things. It's the miracle of
Mind-blowing.
life. It
Yes.
is. But it's much harder. It takes a lot to make that happen. So, I was sort of the same thing. I had this very healthy, clean diet, all of the things around me, the products I used on my body, the pots I cooked in, all that stuff, everything was clean and healthy. And so I, did a few things. I started going to an acupuncturist. And then it was when I went to one particular acupuncturist, and he not only started doing all of his tricks with his needles and his work with that, but he put me on some pretty strong herbs, Chinese
right.
herbs. And those tasted disgusting, but did their job also. But there were 2 lifestyle changes that he made me make that I think made a big difference. One, he told me I needed to start eating some red meat. And I didn't eat any red meat. I ate a little bit of fish, and that was pretty much it. He said, you need more oomph in Western terms.
Right,
you need
right.
more oomph. You need more life force to grow and carry a baby in you, which made total sense to me because I think I had a couple I know I had a few early term miscarriages. So I didn't have enough chi. My chi wasn't strong enough to carry a baby. So he said...
Let's just pause for a second, because that may sound totally wacky to some people who, haven't kind of grown up with eating foods, and me growing up in Lake California in the canyons with hippie commune people, the cheat. But really, it does make sense. I've talked a lot about iron, yes, you can live a vegan lifestyle, and you can absolutely be successful and have, very, very healthy children. But there is something about needing that in your body that, we maybe need to think about. And it's, whether you call it chi, or you call it life force, or you call it,
it's the yin and the yang also.
Yeah.
We have to have this balance. I was raised a macrobiotic. Again, way before macrobiotics was anything anyone was talking about.
Tell us what that means.
Macrobiotic is a way of eating, so a diet, more or less, but it's a way of eating that really looks at the yin and the yang of food. So you eat to create balance within you, and you never eat anything at the opposite ends of the spectrum. You don't eat any refined flours, refined sugars. Foods tend to be at room temperature, neither very hot or very cold, and you have a balanced plate with all of the all of the sensations,
flavors,
the flavors,
right?
so that you create balance in your body. But in Eastern medicine, it's the yin and the yang, and I needed less yin and more yang. So he said a little bit of red meat 3 times a week, I think was what he wanted me to eat. And I was like, oh, I have to eat a hamburger 3 times a week. And he goes, no. You need grass-fed beef. Has to be grass-fed beef. 3 times a week, but it can be like a bite.
Right.
You know, I mean, like the size of a dice or something. I mean, just a little bit. So anyway, that was one of the changes. So I started doing that. And the other thing was to start meditating every day.
Interesting.
And I kind of felt like, oh, I know how to meditate or whatever, but I wasn't doing a daily practice of meditating. So I started doing that. And so every single day I would sit down on the floor and I would meditate every morning. And I would start off by thinking of this baby that I wanted to have. And I also, within a month, had 3 people randomly. Our friend Anna Getty was one of them.
Right.
My acupuncturist was another one. And then a third person who said to me, I think that the baby, this again will sound a little hooey, but I think that the baby is there and ready for you. Like Anna said to me, I can see the baby. She's like above you. I can see this baby. You just need to tell this baby that you're ready.
Yeah.
So that may sound weird to people, but I think part of it, this may be more relatable to you, is that in saying that every day, I'm ready for you, I convinced myself and I physically readied my body to get pregnant, carry the baby, and have the baby. And so I was able to.
Yeah.
And so from that point of making those changes, it was a matter of like 6 months and I was pregnant.
Amazing.
And this was after like 5 years of struggling.
Well, I mean, I think that we can take that, like whether you're calling it meditation or you're calling it prayer or you're just calling it like positive visualization, you know? But the idea that if something is so really important to you, that there is a connection between our minds and our bodies, and that it's really strong. It's stronger than most of us think it is.
Right.
So if you are going through some kind of challenge, to use all the things that are physical, that you know, all the resources that you have, but also to really use the power of your mind, you know, really like think it, and it will happen.
You know, I've been reading all this research lately about optimism and gratefulness and how powerful that really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I was just reading a great article by my friend Urian Camp, who started Ode magazine.
Oh, okay.
And he was writing on this. But, you know, if you're going to sit down and pray or meditate, you're generally not going to dwell on the terrible stuff.
Right.
You know? I mean, if you're praying, because that was always a part of my meditation every morning also. But if you're praying, there may be things that you're asking for help with, you know, and that's sort of thinking about those hardships. But generally, you're also saying thank you for the sky and the sun and the whatever. But that gratitude, that expressing gratitude, that optimism is generally what you carry through meditating also. And it's powerful. I mean, scientifically proven to be powerful.
Yeah. That's an awesome way to end our little segment. Thank you, Sara Snow.
You're very welcome.
I really, it was really great to talk with you. I hope you guys check out Sarah's website, and there's always something new in store. Yeah. I'm sure there are more coming down the pike, but I hope we get to talk again soon because it would be really fun.
Good. I'd love to.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.